Hello.
Hey, all right, you can hear me?
Yes, and it looks like I have the other screen now.
Yeah, you were both logged in as the organizer, it looks like.
But I
And
wasn't I wasn't signed up as that way, so
so interesting.
yeah.
So I cannot even tell you how many times this happens. So many times. So, like, meaning that, wait, I'm logged in differently than I was before. Why is that? Like, anyway. Um, so do you have oh, did you start recording?
No.
Why is it toggling a little beep or something saying that we're recording, but we're good to go? So I'm going to begin and just say thank you all so much for being here at 2 o'clock Eastern time on this Thursday afternoon, January 10th. Thank you so much for being here. I am Karen Lynch, and I'm excited to be co-presenting with Amy Mahoney today. We'll introduce ourselves a little bit more in just a moment, but just to um, convince you that you are in the right place at the right time. Today, we're going to be sharing with you some insights from the 2018 Corporate Researchers Conference, where we were in Orlando and we were working with insights professionals from around the globe and gleaning some insights from them as they were there to focus a little bit about what the industry could give to them. So we've called our webinar When Researchers Play. Welcome, everybody. Thank you. So as I said, yeah, I'm Karen Lynch. I'm the Senior Director of Qualitative Insights here at Insights Now. And I pretty much head up everything qualitative at our organization. So I cross from pure qualitative projects into our hybrid projects. And I'm ensuring sort of the integrity of our projects and making sure that we're using the right methodologies to meet the right objectives and working with the rest of the individuals on our team to execute, again, good quality research. And Amy, I'd love for you to tell everybody a little bit about yourself as well.
All right. Hi, I'm Amy Mahoney. I am a senior researcher over at Insights Now, and I'm also part of the qualitative department. And my role is a little bit different from Karen's, so I'm lucky enough to be the moderator or facilitator for a lot of the projects that you guys have for us. So welcome, and nice to meet all of you virtually.
Thank you. Thank you. So just before we get started, a little housekeeping details. Some of you have already worked with the little chat box for us, so I really appreciate that. If you have questions, enter them into the question pane. If you want to say something, comment on something you may. We will be watching that box as it pops up, and certainly if it's an urgent, pressing question, which they never really are too pressing, we'll answer them on the spot. But for the most part, we're going to save our second to last slide, if you will, for a pure question and answer session. We are going to have a few interactive areas where we're actually asking you to contribute a little bit to some content and work on gleaning some insights with us. So just get your fingers ready to do some typing and we'll make this fully engaging. Thank you so much. Now, just to kind of tell you a little bit about Insights Now if you are only experiencing us for the first time in this webinar. We are a behavioral market research company. We kind of pride ourselves in looking carefully at the moments when consumers are kind of in an experience or in the context of a certain time of day or occasion, and we're looking at the behaviors that they exude in those moments. So things that motivate them, things that press on them, things that inspire them, and how they're all at play in those individual moments. And we work across many different areas, obviously, all through your process, whether it's right up front at the fuzzy front end of innovation, all the way through when you have an existing brand and you're just working on communication strategy. As we said, we are going to be talking about when researchers play. So here's a quick screenshot of what the exhibit hall looked like at the Corporate Researchers Conference. And this is a view from our booth, if you will. And you can see participants were using Lego bricks, using our method called Playful Insights. And they were putting together models that represent answers to questions that I ask. And when I say represent answers, they are thoughts and feelings brought to life in 3D. So taking a step back and telling you a little bit about what Playful Insights actually is. What is Playful Insights? Some of you may be wondering if this is new to you. It's a qualitative research methodology. Again, individuals are building with Lego bricks. represents those thoughts and feelings. They're the ones that they're conscious of, and they're also ones that are just below the surface. It's a play-based method, and what happens with anybody who's using a play-based methodology is the atmosphere is relaxed and participants get real comfortable, and they take risks because they're feeling this inherent trust for the people that they're seated around the table with. It allows them to kind of share and be really vulnerable. And again, the models are metaphorical, so it combines a little bit of metaphorical thinking with storytelling, because people are telling the stories that bring their models to life afterwards. And what it does is it taps into what we are learning is System 3 thinking. So just taking a little step back, you probably are familiar with System 1 and System 2 thinking. And for some of you, this might be a little bit redundant with what you've heard if you were at our September webinar, but when we looked at the registration list, we realized that many of you were not at that webinar, so we wanted to level the playing field a little bit and bring some of you up to speed. So I'll go quickly through these. The idea is that with System 1 and System 2 thinking, made popular by Nobel Prize winning author Daniel Kahneman, right, raising our awareness of those two modes of thought, there are these two modes of thinking, modes of decision making, if you will, where System 1, it's real fast, automatic, unconscious thinking that happens when you're making an everyday decision, like, buying milk at the grocery store, for instance. That's the example I always fall back on, which is pretty much, that whole milk has a red top on it, and you can walk down past the milk aisle, grab your brand, grab that red topped milk, and you know what you're getting. You don't have to think about it much. System 2 thinking is a little more deliberate, right? It's slower. It takes up more time because it takes a lot of effort, and you use it when you're kind of weighing very complex things. Obviously purchasing an automobile, deciding which college your child should attend, or which preschool for that matter. It's the work of very deliberate, rational thinking. But we've realized that there was something missing in these two models, right? There's something called System 3 thinking. So that's when participants spend a little bit more time with their memories and with their imaginations. So they're not necessarily simply weighing, pros and cons and doing assessments, and they're not necessarily being automatic either. They're dreaming or daydreaming with purpose, right? They're thinking about their aspirations or their visions. And what I mean by that is, imagine if you were driving somewhere. Navigational thinking, for instance, is you're home, you need to get to your office, it's a short commute, but there was a storm last night, there's a tree down, and you suddenly find yourself stopped on the road you are. You have to mentally think about and imagine the next route you could take, right? Oops, I'm recalculating the path in my brain, if you will, to picture a different route. That's not System 1 or System 2. It's something very different. Same with sort of weighing social consequences, if you will. If you were trying to think about, should I go out this weekend with this particular group of friends? Should I stay home, maybe go out with my spouse? You're trying to see, how will it be perceived by my spouse if I go out with my female friends? How would they feel if I say to them, nope, I'm on a date with my husband, so on and so forth, or wife for that matter. So you're weighing the kind of social consequences and rewards of different situations. Again, not System 1 or System 2, you're imagining outcome of possible events. Intellectually, that's kind of the mental activity that you might be engaged in right now, where you're thinking about whether there's other applications for what I'm talking about, or maybe you're thinking, how can I apply this to my work? Or maybe you're exploring, is there a problem that suddenly thinking about it differently will help me solve? I've never really considered System 3 before. So it's actually engaging your intellect in this, whether it's philosophical or just, again, intellectual conversation. And memorial, I like to explain this with people because it happens to me more often than I can imagine, is after you've had a conversation or something, when you imagine how the scenario could have been completely different if you had chosen different words, that happens all the time, right? You say, ooh, if I had said this, this might have been the outcome. Or if I had done this, this might have been the outcome. So again, you're using your imagination, and it informs how you make decisions in the future. You're thinking about the past to move things forward. So again, it's pretty complex. If you have questions about perspective thinking in general, we can talk about it later. But let me just explain why researchers sometimes need to tap into the perspective thoughts of their consumers, and reasons why playful insights kind of can come into play. Imagine you work for a bank, for instance, and you're kind of trying to explore with consumers a branch of the future, right? You want to talk to them about a branch with innovative features, some they haven't tried before. Well, you want them to remember their past bank experiences and kind of bring those to life, and then maybe project into the future what would the ideal new branch experience be. Or maybe you work for a beverage brand and you want to understand the hopes and fears of consumers when they're considering switching their family, for instance. Maybe they want to switch from one beverage that's has a higher sugar content to a different one, or maybe they're trying to go caffeine free, so they want to eliminate carbonation, but they're trying to picture what their families will think of that choice that they may make. Maybe it's a personal care company that you work for, right? So maybe you're thinking about how people could react to a new product and what goes on in their minds when they're exposed to a new product. What are some of the hopes that they have and kind of aspirational results that they're seeking? What are some of the fears that might get in the way of them making that new purchase? So we're exploring the kind of their future thoughts about something that's an existing product in a category. That's another time when we want perspective thinking. And then for all of you, most likely you're all serving on a marketing team, right? There are times when you're really working on brand strategy. Often researchers are consulted for brand strategy these days. So maybe you're trying to help figure out what direction the team should go into to, again, achieve aspirational results as a team, tackling the research challenges together. Those are all the types of times when we bring in playful insights, and we bring them in deliberately to unlock insights. So if we segue from that into the theme at the Corporate Research Conference, which was unlock insights, if you will, the idea was, how could we kind of assess some things with the attendees that were there to unlock some insights into what they think about being an insights professional. So again, right there in the exhibit hall, we allowed people to experience playful insights. That's a shot of our Chief Research Officer, Greg Stuckey, and one of the participants who was engaged in playful insights for the first time. And again, just taking a look at the method and seeing where they could go with it. So let me explain a little bit about kind of the step-by-step process for playful insights and how it works. We start with a pile of bricks, literally a pile of bricks. Now, at the Corporate Researchers Conference, we had, as you could have seen in some of the other slides, we had piles of them. In a Playful Insights session, we may have a more curated bag, if you will, where everybody has the exact same bricks, and we're building something quite deliberately. Here, everybody had access to a pile of bricks, and they build metaphorical models in response to questions that the moderator or facilitator shares. They then tell the story of their model to the listeners, if you will. So in a group setting, that's in a group. Here at the conference, it was us, members of the Insights Now team. And then together we reflect on those models and the stories that they share. And that's where the insights come into play. So we shared 2 questions with everybody. And we did this in 2 ways. We had, on the first day, we had people talking about what they enjoy about being an insights professional. So again, they had to kind of think about their current state and tap into their past memories to just kind of bring to life for us what they enjoy about being an insights professional. And then on the second day, we posed a different question. How would they like the insights industry to evolve? So that was, again, using your imagination and projecting into the future, that real prospective thinking. How should the industry evolve? People didn't necessarily do both of them. Some people came on day 1 to our booth to build. Some people came on day 2 to our booth to build. We had more people building on day 2 because some of the folks that came and built on day 1 wanted to come back again and see what our next question was and build again. So I'm going to turn the reins here over to Amy to tell us a little bit about what we learned, starting with the video clip. So take it away, Amy.
All right, so as we were at the conference, we asked each person to build a model. And as they were building their model, after they were done, we asked them to give their model a movie title or a book title or some kind of pithy way to capture the essence of their model. And we also asked them to tell a story to explain what does their model represent. So I'm about to play a video of Kevin. He's explaining what he built in response to the question, how would you like the industry to evolve? I'm going to hit play, and if everything works well, you're going to hear audio. If for some reason you can't hear anything, please type into the question box because we don't want you to have to listen to a video or watch a video without any audio. So here goes.
I wanted flexibility or versatility, adaptability. So I created this vehicle that one can roll, so it can go fast, but it can also fly with the propeller. And then I made this guy's supposed to be, he's supposed to be forward looking. And then this is another device because we want to keep digging deep. But he's also very forward looking, so that's why he's in the front. Yeah. But in keeping with the versatility, I have this thing here. This is for going underwater too. So he could just get inside the bubble and breathe. If you're going in underwater, like new terrain, foreign places. So I think as Insight's industry evolves, it continues to need to be fast, flexible, be able to adapt to different situations. But it's this idea of just still moving forward, right? You get this metaphor of just moving forward. That's my thought. I wanted flexibility or versatility.
Sorry, didn't mean to play that again. Let's see if we can move to the next slide. Okay, here we go. So basically, it's the combination of the models themselves. It's also the stories that people are telling about their models. And by hearing a lot of them and seeing a lot of them, we're able to find themes, which leads us to different insights. Today, I'm going to share with you 5 of those insights that we learned from the conference. So for each insight, before I get to the actual insight itself, what I want to do is take you through the model so you can understand how we got there. Starting with the model on the left, what you'll see is that the tag is written Insights Island to hunt and gather data and insights. So in this case, he's in an island, which means that he feels like Insights, the team, is kind of on their own, but they're trying to find the information for their companies. They are trying to hunt and gather. In the middle one, what you'll see is that the tag says, I'm an Insights warrior. And if you notice on the right there are some blue steps where he had to climb and he had to do some work in order to get to the top, to get to where he is now. In that right model, you can see that the tag says, search for the hidden aha moment. And if you notice, he's got a bunch of different tools in his hand. And that's what helped him to open that treasure chest of insights. So it's not just that he's there, but he had to work to get it, which leads us to the insight of number 1, that Insights professionals enjoy having empowered and active roles. So they are active in their careers. They are seeking things. They are making things happen. All right, moving on. Oh, don't know why it jumps like that. Moving on to number 2. Again, I'm going to take you through the models first. On the left-hand side, the little tag, it's a little bit harder to read. It says, me on top of my problem-solving machine. So here we have a lady. She's at the top. And I guess I should stop and mention that I might talk about guys or ladies, but really this is just how they pick the persona within Lego bricks. A lot of times it's a male just because that's what the figurines are. It could represent anybody. It could just be a person, I would just say. So it's not specifically males or females telling us this story. But what I wanted to showcase here is she is on the top and she is looking down, but she has a machine that's helping her to get there. In the second from the left, you can see the text is full view. And what you have is the guy standing on top of the tower. There are some little green things and little pieces behind him, and those are the fruits of his efforts. There's a piece that's kind of reaching off to the left that's going down to the ground, and that represents his team, and it's stabilizing him, yet he is still looking forward to the future to see what's going on next. So it's a combination. He is at the top, but he has a team and he knows where he's moving forward. Third from the left, the thing says, look from above. You can see that the guy's on a smaller tower, not necessarily quite as high, but there's an owl on top of his head. And metaphorically, that represents the knowledge that he has about the brands and categories for his company. And it's what he does. He leverages that in order to get to the research. So he's looking, but he's also utilizing information he currently has. And on the right-hand side, this guy's also on a tower. It says, on a clear day, you can see forever. And in this case, you can see the guy has that little hat on his head. He's got a little cape. He's a little warrior. There's a lot of greenery going on, and typically that represents living things or growth and learning. So it's something about being on top, being high up. And so we kind of thought about this, and it really took us to this insight that Insights professionals enjoy having a holistic, high-level view of the bigger picture. And sometimes you need to step back. It's seeing the forest once you leave the trees kind of thing. Some people, this was something they've already achieved within their companies, and for others, it was aspirational. And now I will take you over to insights number 3. Again, I'm going to take you through the model first, which will get us to the insight. So here from the left, we have the sign that says True Consumer Partnership. And what they are talking about here is a collaboration. What you see is a little guy looking at another little guy, and it's about linking in with the consumers. It's understanding what it is that they're thinking, and then collaborating with everybody in the team as far as research objectives, creating new concepts, creating new prototypes. So it's about collaboration with the team, but also with the consumer. The middle one, the tag just says connectedness, but there's 3 pieces to this. So first is that big grayish pipe that goes in the middle, and this is really showcasing the connection or the link between the brand teams and the consumers. On the top is that greenish tree-looking thing. This is kind of representing growth. And the piece on the bottom is a wheel. And this really represents the consumers and what they're thinking and what they're wanting. So that's constantly changing and evolving. And then he is that gray link that's taking it all together. And on the right-hand side here, we have a tag that says brand and consumer getting married by insights. And we'll go and dig a little deeper into what that means, because this is one of our favorite metaphors. But before we do, I just want to take you to our 3rd insight, where it's insights professionals seek a closer connection to consumers for themselves and their brand team clients. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Karen, only because this was her favorite model of the day, and she absolutely loves talking about it. So I'll hand it back over to you. Go ahead, Karen.
Thank you. Yeah, it's one of those that stays with me. So when we do these projects, overall, whether it's, with hundreds of people at a conference or whether it's for a smaller scale, there are some models that stay with you because of the stories and the richness of the metaphors. So when we consider the marriage between brands and consumers, it's pretty obvious, right? They're talking about connecting those 2 roles, brand, consumer, being connected by insights. But it leads me to start thinking, and this is where the real insight work happens in the sessions that we run. So first, what do we know about marriage? Well, it stems from love. And then you realize it also shows this mutual commitment. It involves an exchange of vows. And here's where I'm going to turn it over to you for a minute and ask you all to just type in, kind of free associate, what else do we know about marriage? Because if we all play with the metaphor a bit, and go ahead and use that, kind of box right there on your screen to add some content. If we all chime in a little bit and build on this association, on this metaphor, we might glean some insights into, how we can apply this to our own work. Yeah, hard work and dedication, right? Yes, trust, absolutely. Yes, there are disagreements for sure. Yes, it involves work and time from both parties. And yeah, hopefully there's trust, right? So that's interesting, right? Because there can be challenges too with that, right? So these are all really great. Thank you so much. So that begs sort of, the question, how can we achieve some of these things? Yes, selflessness, good one, Elizabeth, thank you. And it's everlasting, Sarah, really nice. If you think about some of these that I shared and that you all are contributing, how can we achieve those things for our companies, for our brands? That's how we take the reflection part of Playful Insights into play. And we say, okay, what does it mean if we were to be really selfless when we worked with our consumers, if we're on the brand team? Or how do we grow our trust between us? Our trust that that the consumer will purchase our product, or maybe their trust for us. Yeah, shared experiences, that's also a great one, thank you. It's the idea that maybe there are things that we can do together where we're actually experiencing something with those individuals who are using our products. So it's this idea of taking the metaphor that a consumer shared with us, or a participant in a Playful Insights session, if you will, and running with it just a little bit, and encouraging you kind of in the context of this webinar to think about the importance for an insights professional to feel like the brand and consumers are getting married, but also consider the fact that insights here is the officiant. They have that active, empowered role. It's sort of like what Amy shared earlier, where there was a warrior, and we heard people talking about hunting and gathering and seeking. One model that we didn't share was a detective that was collecting clues and putting pieces together. There was another model that said they were a flamethrower, and there was a wizard who was connecting via a bridge. So all of these active, empowered roles are present in our insights professionals, collectively in the people that are here on this webinar today. You're all active and empowered individuals. So how can you empower your brand team and consumers to have this marriage of sorts? Anyway, thank you, Amy. If you want to go on to the fourth insight, we'll dig deep into another one shortly.
All right, so again, I'd like to take you through the models first, knowing that you can't quite hear everybody's explanation. I think it's helpful for understanding the insights that we came to. So in this case, we actually have two different points of view as we're looking through these models. The two on the left, I think of as very aspirational. So this is kind of the goals that we want to get to. The very left guy talks about wanting a level playing field. So if you look across, the insights guy is actually the guy with the little gray hat on the left-hand side, right behind the green Lego. All the other people there on the right would be his cross-functional team. And what's a little bit hard to see from the picture is that there's a little person right behind our insights professional. He is representing the consumer here. And basically, the insights professional is trying to make sure that he is always bringing the consumer point of view into that cross-functional team meeting and leveling the playing field so that way nobody forgets about the consumer. On the one right next to it, the tag says, reach deeper and further to break down walls. So here you can see there's a very long pipe. This is really about reaching further. On the back there, you can see there's a bunch of brown Legos that are kind of being built vertically. This is around the wall that we want to break down. And again, there's some kind of green. You can see there's a little bit of tree that kind of represents something living or breathing and growth. So what he's saying is in order to get more insights, we need to break down walls and we need to reach deeper than maybe we ever have before. So those are the aspirational goals, but then the two on the right really have more to do with how do we get to those goals. So that third from the left there, that is our friend Kevin's, and you all heard his explanation as he talks about it. Moving forward with versatility. So there's a lot of different pieces on his model in order to approach things from a different way, different pieces that he needs, the underwater breathing, the little digger tool in order to move forward. On the very right-hand side, the tag says drive knowledge through technology. And you can see there's a little insights guy on the car and he's driving the car. But what's interesting to me about this is there's still that question mark that's kind of in the back of his car. So it kind of tells us that we know we need to use technology, but we might not necessarily know what technology to use or how to leverage it in a way that helps us moving forward. But it does take us to our insight number 4, which is that professionals need to keep driving forward in this profession. In terms of research and insights, we know we need to utilize technology and be versatile in order to break down barriers. All right, and that, if I can find the little arrow, will take us to our next slide. And what I think is interesting about insight number 5 is while we specifically did not ask for anything negative, we were only focusing on those 2 questions that we mentioned at the beginning. There are people who will always bring up issues as they come up, and this is a forum to hear about concerns, and it comes out in a very safe way. So what we heard is while there's a lot of positivity and insights people are very optimistic about the future, there are pain points. And we did have a couple of them. Here's just 2 examples. So if you notice on the left, what we have is an insights guy. He is wearing the silver hat. And the guy up on the pedestal is the CEO. And if you look, he's kind of bowing down. It's almost a subservient kind of pose, almost as if he feels he's not worthy or he's begging. And what he says is, in order to do our job, we really need money and resources. So I could be very, very great at my job, but I'm still at your mercy. Looking on the right, it's a similar kind of thing. Here the CEO is in the green, and you can see he's actually holding money in his hands. He's also holding the tools. But what's interesting to me is he has the treasure box and it's closed here. The insights guy is on the right. And even though I don't quite see it, it looks like from his face, I feel like he's a little bit sad. Like he doesn't quite have what he needs. Like he's begging for that gift of tools from the CEO. So again, as we talk about this and we think, how do we leverage this? How do we think more? What I'd love to do is dig deeper into the world of gifts and specifically how it fits into the world of business, because I think it's such an interesting concept. So let's dive into this one. The actual tag here says the gift of tools from CEO. So let's ponder for a minute. And again, this is going to be interactive. So I'm going to talk for a minute here about gift giving and what I was thinking, but then I'd love for you to chime in using that text box and talk about what you think from a gift giving perspective. So my thoughts are there's a giver and a receiver in order to have a gift. It's always willingly given. And there might be some expectation of reciprocity from the giver, but it's free. At least that's the way I think of it. So now please chime in with some additional thoughts so that way we can come up with some insights for this particular model and this pain point. All right, so we've got a couple coming in. It actually feels great to give gifts. Some people are loving that. It's about giving. And people love to receive gifts too. And that there is expectation that it should be reasonable. And we have that it's better to give than to receive.
Mhm.
Let's see here. We also have that there's surprise gifts, that they're not always positive. And then there's also, let's see what else. You can honor the giver by giving them a gift in return. And I see here that there are some that are practical and that are some that are special. So what brings me to this next question for you to ponder as we think about ourselves being insights professionals. So first, how can we encourage researchers to get gifts from CEOs? So if this is really about needing these gifts in order to do our job, what can we do to encourage a CEO to get us there? And then in turn, what is the CEO expecting from us? So thinking about it in terms of business case, is it really a gift? And if it is a gift, how do we get there? So there's a few others showing up here. You can have a wish list, but you don't always get what's on the other end of the wish list. I feel like that's perfect given this. And so let's see here. That's kind of what we have. So what I'd like to do is just take it over to the next slide. And here, just want to open it up to questions about anything related to this webinar. Could also be related to Playful Insights, the method, or anything else. And so feel free to use the chat box. I see one's coming in already. I'll go ahead and read them and we'll let Karen answer the question. So the first one is, when would you use Playful Insights?
Oh, that's a great question. So again, as I had talked about, using Playful Insights is it's perfect for those times when you want to either kind of leverage people's memories of an experience that they've had in the past in order to learn from it and then project into the future. Maybe it's understand a little bit about their aspirations. Maybe it's kind of cover their hopes or their fears so that you can, build with knowledge a product base. Maybe you want to, really try to uncover what's intriguing to them about a possible product or concept, or even just come up with great language for communications campaigns. Maybe you want to, simply consider what happens in the mind of an early adopter if you're thinking about game changing in the category, for instance, or again, just design the ideal brand experience. Or going back to the marriage, you want to have some sort of a shared experience between a brand and a consumer. There's lots of ways to be using the method.
All right, so our next one says, what other methods do you use for System 3 thinking?
It's an interesting question. Right now, we are not necessarily using too much with System 3 thinking other than Playful Insights because it's so effective. There are moments where you tap into it in a qualitative setting where maybe you're doing some priming with storytelling and maybe you are tapping some metaphor work. We have a method called Spark, for instance, which is very heavily metaphor based. So we have some similar tools. This one is just the most comprehensive and introduces a different level of content, if you will, because it's all about kind of leveraging a team's ability to run with metaphors as they come up kind of real time. So there's some other qualitative methods in this space, and then largely this one. Thank you.
All right,
Good
so-
question. I'm seeing lots of them.
Yep, our next one is kind of a two-part question, so I'll read you both pieces, and if you need the second piece read again, I will do that. The first is, how do you determine that using green pieces means living or growth? And the second part is, do all colors have a meaning?
Yeah, so great questions, and I'm really glad you're clarifying. All of the models are exactly what people say they are. So when there's green and growth on there, it very often means growth, but it's what they tell us that it is. So that one model, for instance, where the person was high up on a clear day, you can see forever, I think it was, there was greenery there and a dog. And their description, their story was, these represent living things. On a different model, the same thing, they would say, well, here these green pieces represent growth. So we don't do that determination. The people who build them determine what they mean. So there are some that are very typical metaphors. You know, we frequently hear, if there's an owl, we frequently hear an owl equals wisdom, because those are commonly known symbols. But again, the meaning of the model comes from the person, and every piece represents exactly what they say it represents. And the other part about is if colors have meaning, again, only if the participant gives it that. So what we'll do when we're facilitating is we ask them questions about the colors that are used. Very often that's just because somebody likes the aesthetics of it, but sometimes when there is a deliberate meaning attached to a color, they're sharing that with us.
So I'm going to jump a little out of order because this next question actually seems to tie in pretty well.
Yep.
It says, who develops the insights coming out of a session? The clients, or you, the moderator, or in conjunction with the clients?
Yeah. So what's cool about Playful Insights is that we actually facilitate client teams using the method as well. So what's happening in our work, again, Corporate Researchers Conference was, I would call people over and say, what do you notice? What are some of the themes you're seeing? Because it becomes very collaborative. We bring in the method for pre-briefings where we discuss sort of hypotheses in advance. So we start mulling over what we think we might hear or what we hope to hear. During the work, people are using bricks strategically, kind of, you know, real time in the back room, if you will. And then, of course, we have a very thorough facilitated debrief at the end where we're bringing all those insights together. So it's a combination of you know, the kind of the moderator, if you will, and the team that's brought in, and together we leverage our diversity of thought and all of our takeaways. So it's pretty dynamic from a developing insights point of view.
So this one goes right hand in hand with what we've just been talking about. How do you start to narrow down the number and types of themes from a Playful Insight session?
So a lot of what we're doing is we are kind of in a divergent phase with this type of thinking. Is we're trying to get as much kind of diversity of thought, again, as we can. We want to understand where the opportunities might be, depending upon the project objective, and we are going with quantity. So we might look at the themes, and those are the ones that pop out in particular, but maybe there's a standalone piece that's actually the most insightful story we heard the whole time. So it becomes one of those things that with experience, you start to intuit where the sweet point is, if you will, for you know, for what we're actually presenting. We want to be exhaustive on some level, and we also want to capture the ones that clearly are rising to the top.
Next question, do you have any examples of how you've used this project and what was delivered?
So all right, examples. So some of the examples that I shared earlier in the webinar are how we've used the project, the method before, where we've done it for, you know, either assessing new, you know, kind of a new product experience, if you will. We've talked about different potential communication areas, if you will, spaces where brands might want to start to have a deeper understanding of a trend in the future. We've talked about a concept that was built, a strategy that was built upon a concept in the personal care space. We've done it with organizations where we're trying to, again, align with team strategy. We're trying to understand how consumers, I'm going through my list in my head, how consumers, again, can describe an ideal, not an ideal, a recent product use case, if you will. So lots of different ways. And I'm sorry, there was a second half of that question, which I'm forgetting. It was how we used it and
what was delivered.
What was delivered. Thank you. I knew there was another thing. So in some cases, that's always something that we discuss with clients themselves, right? And what the expectation is. So the report's a little different. It's very visually heavy, as you can imagine. We've delivered hard copy books for people to actually put on coffee tables and keep around in offices, because the models with the kind of signals of the story actually bring a lot to life. So just picture a very visually heavy report, some video clips of stories, and so on and so forth.
And then I don't think you covered this one in your list of applications, but we've also done it for teams, for team building activities to help uncover problems and what's working well and what's not working well. So you can use it in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, for sure.
Next question. Sorry, did you have something else you wanted to add there, Karen?
No, all good.
All right. So next is, do you need certain types of people or segments to use Playful Insights?
That's another good question. So just like the short answer is not really. It can be done with almost every segment. And when I mean by almost every, the only demographic group, if you will, that has some challenges with this are seniors who have some maybe arthritis kicking in and their manual dexterity is suffering, if you will. So you know, that's not necessarily the ideal target for the method. But what we typically recruit for, we have some questions that get in our screening into people's abilities to think metaphorically and comfort sharing stories. So just like we would with any other creative, qualitative method, we recruit specifically for individuals who are comfortable going there. It doesn't necessarily serve us well to have people who are super buttoned up, but we want to have an environment that's conducive to conversation. So not dissimilar from some of the other recruiting methods for a qualitative, kind of a creative qualitative group. But they don't have to be people that are, you know, skewing high on the creativity scale per se. That's not important because the method really levels the playing field with a lot of people.
All right, and the last one that I see coming in, so feel free to keep on coming if there are more questions, but this one says, have you considered conducting Playful Insights with mediums other than Lego?
Well, so interesting question. Right now, Playful Insights is the Lego-based method. It's not that there aren't other, you know, kind of creative adaptations for it, because there most likely are. It's just that there is a lot to the science of working with Lego bricks that works well for us. There's you know, Lego Series Play, which anybody can kind of Google, is based very much in science, backed by a lot of research that the Lego Group undertook, which is sort of the origin of the Playful Insights method. And there are deliberate reasons why working with bricks that are not necessarily ever going to look realistic and have this very play-based historical origin that bring out people's natural abilities to play and desire to play, and sets up the environment deliberately, and also frees people from having to build in a certain way. So anyway, so that's the derivation of the method, if you will, is specifically with bricks, but there are, of course, other methods that people could adapt using other mediums. It's just that there's a lot of science and deliberate skill building and deliberate ways we craft questions that are conducive to using Lego bricks specifically.
All right, so that is all the questions that I see popping up. If you have additional questions, feel free to go ahead and keep adding them, but I'll just move on to the next slide then.
Sure, and this is really about a question that I anticipate when I talk to people, which I've already touched on a little bit when I mentioned the seniors, which is, you know, what type of audience or what type of participants are we looking for or working with? Who is this method ideally suited for? And the reality is it can really be done with almost everybody, people of all ages. So we've done the work with children who, it's really interesting to tell children that they're building deliberately in response to a question rather than just free building, but once they pick up what we're doing, their imaginations of course take over. We've done it with mother-child groups where they're actually collaborating together and working separately and coming back together. It's actually a wonderful flow. And we've done it with men and women, anywhere from teens all the way up to men and women in their, I think the early 60s is the furthest out that we've gone, again, because there are some issues with people once they start to get older that the method just doesn't fit with who they are and how they were raised, and they're a little less likely to be too playful unless they're really playful individuals and highly creative types. So I think everybody enjoys the process and enjoys kind of the personal insights they glean as well from a method where we're gleaning insights almost consistently throughout.
So just a couple more things that I'd like to add here is that this is really an interactive session, not for just the people who are playing with the models. Let's say if you're talking with consumers, we have our people in the back room, the client teams also working with the models at the same time. So it's not just interactive and sitting in a dark room if that's the way you want to move forward with it. The other thing here in this example is we just had one question that people built a model on, which worked really well from a conference perspective to get people to understand how it works. But if we're doing this as a playful insight session, it tends to be a series of narrated questions. So it's build more than one model, and each model builds upon each other and the insights that we're working with in order to address specific questions or objectives. So it's not necessarily a just build one model and this is what we get. It's really a combination of things. And just to reiterate that even though the themes and topics can be very serious sometimes, participants always enjoy doing this because playing with Legos is fun. There's something about it that people enjoy. I mean, there's a reason it's called Playful Insights. So it really does have that aspect of fun, not just insights that you get out of it.
Perfect. So if you have further questions, I have, certainly more information about the method. I also have, I think, some papers on just the value of play and what it does for a human being as they're setting in their workplace. So if you're looking for any kind of further information, please reach out to me, karen.lynch@insightsnow.com. Meanwhile, if you're enjoying these webinars and want to know what the next one in our series is, it's on February 7th, and it's going to be talking to or sharing back some information as we talk to members of our Clean Label enthusiast community. We're talking to them now about their New Year's hopes and dreams and resolutions, and we'll be sharing those out. Sarah, I see that you have another question on here that just popped up, so I don't want to leave you hanging there. How many people do you use in a typical piece of research? It all depends on how many groups and the scope of the research. So, that's certainly something that if you want to shoot me an email, we can talk further, because that's one of those it depends types of questions. Anyway. Thank you, everybody, so much. Feel free to continue to ask me more questions anytime via email or just shoot me a message if you want to have a phone call to talk about it. I'm passionate about that, and also passionate about what we learned at the Corporate Researchers Conference. So I appreciate you tuning in to learn a little bit more about what happens when researchers play. Thank you all so much for being here. You're quite welcome, Sarah. And everybody else, you're all welcome as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for attending.